All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. If you didn't see, there's some cookies and water in the back. Help yourself. Don't want anyone angry here. We're all pretty excited, I'm sure, to learn about this project. I'm Ryan Drew. I'm the CEO of Rural Communities Housing Development Corporation. Our corporate offices are based out of Ukiah. We serve Lake, Mendocino, Tehama, and up to the Oregon border on the 101 and 95 corridors. We have a brief presentation for you today, and then Wendy will have part of the presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions. So bear with us here, and I'll walk you through our PowerPoint. So as we are a nonprofit 501c3, our mission is to provide decent and affordable housing to low and moderate income persons. We were incorporated in 1975. We have extensive experience and capacity, having developed over 700 units and managing over 500 units. We take pride in partnering with our community partners, both private and public. So part of our services, we are a housing developer. We acquire, obtain entitlements, and finance the development. We also provide property management services. I'm sorry, I should have introduced. Michelle Fox is our Director of Property Management, and Ashley Hathaway is our Regional Manager of Property Management, and Angelica Figueroa is our Director of Development. So under property management, we provide asset management, maintenance, and resident services. Regarding this project, kind of where it stemmed from is AB 109. In 2011, Governor Brown signed into law Assembly Bill 109, Public Safety Realignment Act, which made fundamental changes to California's correctional system. I don't think I need to read all of that, but
and I'll talk more about it.
yeah, that's more of a Wendy thing. So as a result of AB 109, RCHCD was selected to develop and manage this permanent supportive housing for justice-involved individuals in response to a Lake County Probation RFP. The contract includes $5 million to support the development of this project. Housing is required to be linked with supportive services to help tenants retain housing, improve health, and increase self-sufficiency. County commits to providing on and off-site supportive services to eligible residents for 20 years. And so, county's role, here's kind of a snapshot. Counties operate 91% of America's jails, through which nearly 11 million individuals pass each year. The vast majority of those who have been incarcerated will return to their communities on release. Counties have an opportunity to reframe practices around housing for the justice involved so that people returning to their communities are provided the tools they need to ensure their success. Reentry housing connects those discharged from jails and hospitals to housing and supportive services. It creates safer communities by reducing rates of rearrest and reincarnation, reincarceration, that's a hard word for me, breaks frequent cycling among public agencies such as hospitals, jails, shelters, and other services paid for by taxpayers. It serves a basic human need and furthers the American value of redemption. So we have two model programs here that were based, a very similar project. One being the Community Transition Program, or CTP, funded by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. This provides transitional recovery support, including housing to individuals exiting Ohio's prison system and who have participated in recovery services while incarcerated. Another program also happens to be in Ohio, is Returning Home Ohio, or RHO, a partnership between Ohio Department of Rehab and Correction and CSH, launched in 2007 with a pilot of 84 units. The program has since expanded and now operates in 9 counties, serving each of the state's correctional facilities. Today, RHO has connected more than 1,000 individuals with homes, which help them break the cycle of institutionalization. Some stats regarding those two projects. So CTP, the first project we just mentioned, 7% participants returned to prison within 3 years, compared to 32% among all those released from ODRC for the same period. So they're showing that this model works statistically. As of April 23, 1,200 people have been housed through the Ohio CTP program. RHO participants were 60% less likely to return to prison than a comparison group not receiving those services, being the housing and Wendy services. Next, please. So here's another stat on comparable projects. One being in Los Angeles County. This is more of a the fiscal merits of the project. Providing supportive housing for just 43 individuals saved $492,000 in hospital costs. And in San Diego County, Supportive Housing Initiative Project 25, they call it, saved taxpayers an estimated $5 million with 35 individuals enrolled in its first year of operation. The lessons learned, as mentioned from these parties we just spoke about, were connect with agencies with a shared interest in public safety, such as parole, probation, correctional agencies, and agencies focused on the homeless, maybe like behavioral health. Hold regular meetings with program partners to assess services and improve outcomes. Create a centralized program hotline to provide responsive customer service when individual staff members are unavailable. The work plan for a project such as this is simple in nature. You work towards site acquisition, determining an appropriate site. We engage in a contract with the seller. We design and develop and provide common spaces, community rooms, kitchen, laundry room, and management services. We also provide a service coordinator and on-site property management, work collaboratively with tenants and service providers to encourage housing stability and compliance with house rules. Some of the funding we're contemplating for this project will be home funds and low-income housing tax credits. So low-income housing tax credits are millionaires' taxation funds, essentially, where we private with a syndicator, and they invest equity into these low-income projects. They become part of an owner of the project for 15 years, and they provide the capital, roughly a little over 50% to fund the project with no debt service. So we're really passionate about the low-income housing tax credit program. It's a great way to bring private equity into some of these projects that can't afford all the debt necessary to construct and operate. Next, please. Here's a contemplated timeline. Currently working on acquiring a site. We don't have a specific site in mind yet. That's part of this meeting. So you can see it's kind of like a Gantt chart, I guess. Next. Operations. Do you want to talk a little bit about this, Michelle?
Sure.
Okay. I've been rambling on that.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Fox. I'm the Director of Property Management for RCHCD. So the operations are our client selection occupancy. We are going to do 20 units referred to and serviced by Lake County Probation, and the remaining units referred to and serviced by other service providers such as like behavioral health. Developing an evidence-based service plan with appropriate agencies. Property management, we will have an on-site manager who will coordinate maintenance issues and ensure tenant needs are met. working collaboratively to keep tenants housed, whether that be at our development or in other housing opportunities. This is a sample of one of our developments in Ukiah. So this is a special needs property that's been very, very successful on Gobi Street.
Oh, and so I just wanted to speak about this, sorry. So as she mentioned, this project is a special needs project. Some of the input that we'd like to discuss with you is the design to hopefully get your feedback. This is a dormitory style with interior corridors with a manager's unit. What is it right there, Ashley? Yeah. The community room?
No, it
Oh.
would be the first.
Those are the offices though.
Yeah.
So the concept with a project like this is that the entry and exits of tenants is easier to see. Whereas this next project, this is more of a garden style complex, which is arguably more aesthetically pleasing for a community. However, you can see the different buildings, there's more areas of entry without as much supervision of the coming and going of residents or their guests. So oftentimes we, for special needs projects, like to do more dormitory style, but we're also very receptive to what you all think about this concept. And so here's some sites. Please keep in mind that this has no bearing on us engaging in any particular location. These sites have simply been vetted by our development department for meeting the other funding sources requirements, such as proximity to amenities is the key component here. And if the owner is even willing to sell. So these two were identified as possible locations within Clear Lake. Next, please. There's a site here in Lakeport as a possibility of meeting the proximity to amenities. And a location in Nice, which also meets the requirements of proximity to amenities. And that's it for my part, but I'm happy to field questions after our friend Wendy.
Hey everybody, I'm Wendy Monfrance. I'm the Chief Probation Officer. And we started this project about 2 years ago. That came to fruition for us, and we look at the types of people we work with, and I just want to make sure that you understand the individuals we supervise day to day. First, we have mostly those are on probation, and probation is generally an alternative to incarceration. Many times people that are on probation did not go to jail and definitely did not go to prison for the crime that they're currently being supervised on. The other extreme is what's called PRCS, and that means post-release community supervision. And that category came about as a result of AB 109, which is what Ryan was describing before. And those are people that came straight from prison, but rather being on parole, they're now supervised by probation, and we've been doing that since 2011. And then there's two other categories that are there. The light blue is new to us for the last 2.5 years or so, and those are people that have not been convicted of a crime, but are currently going through the court system, and instead of being incarcerated, we are making sure that they have the services they need and that they're coming to court for their court appearances. And then the last little one is mandatory supervision, and that's kind of a technical, before 2011, they would have gone to prison, but now they don't. They spend an extended time in county jail and then come out and are supervised by us. So we saw some questions on Facebook in our post, so I wanted to address the people that are on supervision in Lake County. They are people who were residents of Lake County when they committed their crime, for the most part, and for the most part, there's a small portion, thank you, that aren't, but there's just also a small portion that leave the county that weren't. So it's kind of a wash when it comes to those that are coming into Lake County, because we also are sending some out if they move. So generally, when someone comes to probation or supervision in Lake County, they were a resident of Lake County at the time they committed their crime, and they intended to stay in Lake County. And I think the percentage is around 83% committed their crimes in Lake County. So not only did they live here and they intended to stay here, but they also committed their crime here. So we don't have a large influx of people coming here. They're not dumped out of prisons here. We're not a sex offender haven. At the current time, we have 33 people that are supervised in our county on one of the forms we do for sex offenses. So we don't have this large sex offender population. And the last numbers I saw from parole, there are around 80 people on parole in Lake County. So if you look at our number is about 650 today, and you add their other 80 on the top end, that's 730 people being supervised in this county for some type of crime. So AB 109 is what Ryan was talking about, and this is where we get our funding. It diverted the funds from the state because there was an overpopulation of state prisons. And so to come up with a plan, the governor and the legislature decided to send people back to their counties of origin to be supervised and handled locally. And with that, the money that the prisons would have spent on those individuals comes to the county, and the probation officer is in charge of what's called the Community Corrections Partnership, which is a group of all of our local law enforcement agencies, social services, behavioral health, to decide what are the types of things we should do here in Lake County to help our residents no longer commit crimes. So we meet twice a year and talk about what to do. We receive around $4.8 million a year for these services, and over the years, not all of that money has been spent. So we had a surplus of that money, and we decided as a group to do this funding project. Now, because probation is the lead of the CCP in the county, the contract comes through us, but it was the Community Corrections Partnership that decided on this project and decided on the contractor. The other things that AB 109 gives us is direction on making sure we're providing services of any type to these individuals so they no longer commit crimes. So we're not going to hit everyone, because some people choose to not make a change in their lives, but we use tools to make sure that we can do everything we can to, if somebody's ready to change, that we're going to help them change. And that's where this housing project is coming from. So why do we choose housing? Because there's evidence. Everything we do, and AB 109 requires us to do, is that things that we do have to come from a place that is proven to work. And there are countless studies that show if a person is housed, when they come out of incarceration, they're at least 10 times more likely to not commit another crime. Because that, once they've gotten into housing, they then are going to access the other services they need to maybe stop using, or mental health treatment, or job training, or any of those kind of things that would help them change. So there are several studies that show that this works, and there's a recent one that was done in 2020, I believe, out of San Francisco, that just looked at 2,400, give or take, probationers, and saw that it reduced recidivism dramatically if they were housed. So we know this works, it's just coming up with the right project. And so, go ahead to the next one. So with this project, we have a plan. It's not just taking 20 people and putting them in an apartment and walking away, and they get to stay there for 20 years. That's not how this is going to work. We have individuals who work in our office who are going to meet with people before they're released from custody or in their first contacts with us if they're not in custody. And they're going to be assessed. Currently, we do several types of risk and needs assessments on everyone we deal with and look at what does this person need to try to change their direction. And so we'll assess, is housing one of those top needs? And if it is, then we're gonna look for what community resources maybe would help this person. Do they have family that they could stay with? Do they have a job waiting for them that will help them pay rent? Things like that. So this is not the first option, but it is an option. So if there isn't other resources for their housing, then we're gonna refer them to this program. And in this program, our officers will be there daily. We have officers that teach classes on thinking change, on changing your behavior, on job training, and we partner with behavioral health and public health to provide these resources. And currently we do it in our offices, both here and in Lower Lake, but this will be on site at the person's home. And in a side note, we're also now bringing it into the homeless camps with our mobile unit, so we can bring the services to them to try to get them on track. So this is not gonna be just drop them off at housing and let them go. That's not how probation works. We are gonna be there with them throughout to try to get them to change their life. And if they're not in a place where they're ready to change, then they're not gonna be referred to this program. So they have to be, we do assessments, and one of them is looking at a person's stage of change. And if they're in a stage of change where they're ready to figure out that their life's not working, then this is a program that will help them. And then the goal is that they stay in the program no longer than 18 months. Then at that point, we have found them permanent housing outside of this project where they are thriving in the community and back on their own, and no longer on probation and no longer needing the services we have to offer. So we can take your questions now.
In the transition after the 18 months, is some of that funding going to pay for their first and last to get them into permanent housing somewhere else?
We will have that available.
Okay.
The 20-year commitment, how does that?
That's our 20-year commitment with RCHDC.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So, a lot of these services that you're gonna be offering through the program are already available should they have choose to take advantage of it. And they didn't. So how does it benefit from them being given these things for free without working towards the same end?
So it's not necessarily for free. There could be a share of cost for the rent if they have the resources. And as they become employed, then that share of cost would change, like a monthly rent. And the problem with housing is there's sometimes rules where a person on probation may not qualify for some of that public housing and they can't get in them. So this gives them an access to public housing that they can get in because we have no restrictions on these 20 beds.
So, if somebody does break a law and end up on probation, shouldn't there be consequences for putting yourself in that position? I mean, growing up, that was one of the things that kind of made not doing crimes make sense, is because should you do that, there would be consequences that could follow you for the rest of your life. And I think that acted as a deterrent. Whereas now people commit crimes, either well, most of them don't even get caught, but the ones that do seem to move in, come out. And I have witnessed those people boast about getting caught and getting, probation or whatever it was, like it was a gold star on top of their head. So the fact that these people are coming out and, oh, so your consequences is, we've got housing for you, and we've got this for you, and we've got that for you.
So,
Could the money be spent differently in prevention rather than this maintenance of these humans?
other funding could, but this funding cannot. Because of how AB 109 was written, these are the types of things we need to do to try to get people to change their thought process. And there are consequences. You can see my officers here, they're all armed, they all go into houses every day. 3 of these officers were in people's houses today. People were arrested, they hold them accountable. We do that. And when we can be in this housing complex and holding them accountable and encouraging them to change their mindset, we're going to reduce the crimes they do in the future.
Are they required to be in that unit, or do they freely come and go as they choose?
No, this will be their home during that time. We're not locking them up. They're out of custody at that point, and the judges have given them the right to freely be in California anywhere they want, with the expectation they're reporting to us that we know where they are. Some of them may have electronic monitoring, some may have breathalyzers they have to test in, some may have to be drug tested. They all have different conditions depending on what they did and how they did it. But those are our accountability pieces, but we also know that just accountability does not work. People still commit crimes if you're just rearresting them. You have to give them the tools that they probably didn't get when they were growing up. They have to get those tools and learn them at some point, or there's just gonna be in this cycle. So we're holding them accountable. At the same time, we're trying to show them there is a path. And here we're gonna help fund that path so that when we're done in a year to 2 years, you're not on that same path. You've figured out a different way.
So how do you project that this facility would affect the neighborhood around it?
I suspect this is gonna be a very safe neighborhood because my officers are going to be there every day. And they're law enforcement. They work in all of your communities. You see them at community events. You see them everywhere. They know what they're doing. They're highly trained. They not only know how to help people change lives, but they also know how to keep the public safe. And so I think this is gonna be one of the safest places in this county.
So what is the data about how this program would change these people coming out of probation? You said that, 60% in one of those examples, reduction in them reoffending over their lifetime, over what period of time?
That study is on a 3-year, not the problem, but a lot of these studies are new, so we only can look at a short time frame. Generally, 3 years is what most statisticians or data people use when they're looking at recidivism rates. So that tends to be what we look at.
So there's nothing that says really that they have changed their mind to such a point that they're not gonna reoffend?
If somebody doesn't commit a crime in 3 years, they're not there is a reason they're using 3 years. Because if after 3 years you're not committing a crime, you're not likely to commit another one.
I don't know, I can't get past the point if you do it once, it's easier the second time.
So I'm sure we're gonna have all these services and, job development, behavioral health counseling from Randall Cole's organization to help, move them along, change their mindset. And they're there for 18 months. Since it is hard for someone who's just as involved to get into housing, will this program also help them with that part so that they're not homeless at the end of the 18 months?
The plan is to have housing navigators in place to help with that transition, which
And to get them qualified.
Yeah, and we have a strong housing navigator community
Perfect.
in this county, and I have no doubt that that will continue with these programs.
That's good.
I have a question that, the program is specifically
for formerly incarcerated individuals or people that are on parole, probation, what have you, but you had mentioned the homeless encampment in your mobile unit that
Yes.
goes out. Is there a place for them at this housing or not? Do they have to be justice involved? Like, what's the
For
criteria?
For our 20 beds, they have to be justice involved at the time we refer them to the program. Now, they may not be still on probation at the end when they're transitioning out, because with other statutes that have, or propositions that have passed, the length of probation time has shortened over the last few years. But they will be when they start. And one static is, piece of data I didn't give you at the beginning was, right now, as of today, 20% of the people that we supervise identify as homeless. It's been as high as 30% over the last year, and that's just the people that tell us. There's, you know, a high percentage of people, we believe, that give us an address, or maybe they're couch surfing, or they're just going from friend to friend, and they're not telling us they're homeless because they think in the past that would have been a reason to get in trouble, and it's not anymore, and they can't get out of that mindset. So I believe the 20% is, that we're seeing as of today, is lower than it really is.
So you don't know how many homeless people probation serves?
Right now, as of today, it's 109. Gina?
So there's 20, though there would be 20 slots that probation can fill, right?
Right,
And you do have a vetting process, it sounded like.
yes.
So if somebody is living, it goes through the process, is one of the 20 that's living there, and then there are issues, I'm sure that there's something in place that, you know, they might lose that privilege.
Yes,
So it's not just like anybody who comes out of probation, you go down a list, oh, okay, they just came out, we're putting them in. It's much more structured and specific, that you're choosing who's going in there for different reasons, and then if a person can't comply, they would not be able to stay, correct?
yeah, and they may be arrested and put
Right.
back in custody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just for individuals, right? It's not for families?
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay, just because I work with families, and we have a lot of homeless families in our school districts who have parents who are just as involved, and it's really hard to get housing. I think this is a great program. Thank you, Chief Montrans, for pursuing this, and RCHD for doing this, because our community needs it.
Are most of these people coming from the state prison system, or they've been sent back to Lake County from state prison?
No, most of the people, the data I showed you at the beginning,
I missed the first.
that's okay. We, of the 652 people we have right now, I think the number is a little over 110 or so that are out of state prison. So it's not even 20% that comes from state prison. The rest are all either in county jail or were never
You
incarcerated.
said out of, oh, you mean state prisons, not out of California?
Yeah, out of state
Okay.
prisons, out of, yeah, California. Scott?
Okay, and my next question is, where is it proposed that this is going to be located? I have a very strong feeling the state owns the fairgrounds. It's only really used on the Labor Day weekend. It's got a fence around it. It's got beautiful spots for some housing. Why aren't we temporarily setting up camp in our county fairgrounds? It's owned by the state.
Well, this property is a county project, it's not a state project.
But it's being funded by the state.
It's funded by the county, the state gives the money to the county, and then the county chooses the programs. It is not a state program,
But it's state funded.
like most of the things we do are state funded, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to.
Well, I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
we
ahead.
don't have a location
Okay.
yet. So, yeah, we had some possible sites, but no current location.
And reality is, because there's the requirement it be close to amenities, it's it's more than likely gonna be at Lakeport, Clear Lake, or Nice, because the grocery stores and the size that they require the grocery store to be, those are the primary, locations.
Okay, Clear Lake has Hope Center,
Yes,
21 beds, is that?
I-
And it's only 20 beds, and like right now, we have, how many did you say, 109?
yes.
Yeah. well, it
But
just
not
sounds
all of the
like it.
109 are ready to change. So if they're not ready to change, we want to use the resource on those individuals that are gonna make the most out of it. If it's somebody that's not ready to stop committing crimes, then we're not going to put them in this housing. Because it won't do any good.
And these are individual apartments, correct?
Yes, they're individual.
They're not like temporary beds.
No, it's an apartment. Scott?
I'm just wondering, I was really curious when you mentioned that they're there for 18 months. How do you get around the residency status that they would have as tenants?
It will be part of the contract that they sign with the housing.
Okay, so they sign a contract recognizing it's more like transitional type of
Yes.
housing and, okay.
I was late, I apologize if I missed it, but I understand they're individuals, but as Anna Santana said, a lot of them have families in the community. Is there going to be a component of this that is gonna help support them in learning parenting skills, reintegration with their children, et cetera?
Yes, so we already do teach parenting skills. We work with Anna and refer to her programs, First Five, LFRC, and our own officers are trained in teaching parenting classes.
I was just curious, any type of collaboration with transit, like the Transit Authority in Clear Lake, or is the positioning or the location of the facility going to be thought to be close to transportation, or is there going to be like a voucher for the tenants to use to get around, or how are we just going to expect them just to walk since it's going to be kind of centrally located? Bear with me, I can't talk.
It's
today.
okay. So we already do give out bus passes to those that we deal with, and that will not change, so they will have that available. I believe all the sites that we're considering at this point, all are very close to public transportation. If not, we definitely will work with them to make sure that a spot is close.
And that is a portion of the proximity to amenities criteria that the funding sources dictate, is being nearby a frequently used transit station,
Excellent.
How is that decision gonna be made?
which
The site
Yeah, the
location,
actual
we're
site.
asking for your input.
This is an input.
This is input,
So if
yeah.
other people obviously, like, this one suggested other, so are you looking for more suggestions in this session?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the community would have some say as to whether or not it would go in their particular community?
That's the point of these meetings.
Okay, not Lakeport.
I think Lakeport would be
I think
great.
Lakeport's the best location.
I think it
I
would be.
agree.
I
I'm sure it
think
is,
Lakeport
that's
would be
why I
awesome.
said not Lakeport.
I think it would too, because you got career point
Yeah,
right
Legacy
there.
College.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the
Libraries,
college, I
schools.
mean, yes, I think it would be.
And the site
close
that's
to
actually
probation
being,
office.
the site that's being provided by them in Lakeport is actually on our street. So it is a block from our office.
Yeah.
Are you only looking for bare land, or is acquiring a already empty building?
The other
something
funding
that-
sources don't allow
So,
for,
sure.
yeah, it's bare land.
Okay.
So it would put your application.
Wendy, the 18 months where they're gonna be housed, how are they gonna be able to sustain the housing? Are they gonna have jobs, are you gonna be working with people, I don't know if you guys are gonna be working with people with lived experience to help people that make it a transition? Because the lived experience is so important in making the transition, someone that knows how to do it, you know what I mean?
You know a guy?
Yeah, I know. So I was wondering,
Yeah,
you're gonna be
no,
working with, CDOs?
yes, definitely.
they'll have a community room, right? Like
Yes, so it's a
common-
community room, there's offices for us to do our work there.
I know, because often you can do classes or
Yes,
groups in
that
those
is the plan.
community rooms. So that would be a great, right there, where people live.
Yeah.
How many square feet do you anticipate in the facility
That's a Ryan question.
for 21 beds?
Yeah.
Around 26,000 square feet.
26,000?
Because it's gonna be 40 units.
We're looking at a 40-unit
Oh, you're
community.
talking about 40 and a half.
But 20 is how many will be for the probation.
Correct,
Right.
40
That's-
units.
Yeah.
yes,
And 26,000 square feet.
roughly.
Are we
Size of
able to
militaries.
give some input on like the design?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
we're
please.
asking
Oh,
for right
okay.
here.
Well, I think the one that is more visible even would be best, right?
So the dormitory, this one here is
Yeah, I mean, because, you want to make sure it's safe and that people are following the rules and that this program is successful. And so I think if you have more supervision, you'll have more, I think the people that are in there are going to follow the rules. They're not going to leave their apartment,
right.
So I think even though it might not be aesthetically appealing, I think it would be more successful in the long run for.
Yes.
I mean, this
Oh,
is-
that's-
This is
oh,
the
that's nice.
interior
Yeah.
corridor style we're talking about,
I-
that you're referring to,
I
and
think that
it
was
can
really
be
nice.
made,
Yeah.
very nice.
And you can also flip that. They might also feel safer themselves
Yeah.
in a situation like that.
Right, right.
Megan?
This is my personal experiences living in that kind of enclosed hallway. You also form a sense of community a little better with your neighbors rather than the outdoor approach to apartments, because you may never see them, whereas you're constantly running back and forth in something like this.
And that could also help with keeping them on the right track and accountability and all the things. That's a good thing to point out.
Randall?
So will the assessment process start before, like post-release?
The hope is pre-release.
Pre-release.
If they're in custody, the assessment will start pre-release. With Cal-AIM, we're starting that anyway. And so the 90 days pre-release is really when you dig in and figure out what their needs are and is this something that benefit them. Zach?
Just to address that also, is we actually have the ability to do video conferencing with those people who are currently in state prison. So doing that pre-assessment is something we can do even before they hit our county to start evaluating for a project like this.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the area I believe you're talking about is already, there's a housing development right close to the freeway.
The one in Lakeport?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's the senior
Okay.
citizens in Bella Vista
Yes.
close by.
Yes.
My girlfriend and I walk by, especially in the summertime, and it's dark, and we walk by there, and we feel perfectly safe. Are we gonna still feel perfectly safe when this new development is here?
I believe you will. And I live around the corner, so I get it. But I believe it will be safer than other complexes because my staff is incredible. They hold people accountable, they make sure that, people are staying on track. And if not, then they get arrested and they go back in custody. And that will happen, just like anywhere else.
I think it would be best for the dormitory style where people are monitored coming and going, they don't have open access to, get people coming in and bringing the drugs or whatever.
It's not monitored, right?
Yeah, there's somebody on site all the time.
Yeah, there's a property manager on site at all
But
times.
I mean, they're actual going in and out of the building, it's not.
No, but we can, the thing with them being on probation, my guys can go in every day and search the house and look for paraphernalia, look for drugs, look for weapons, anything they're not supposed to have.
So would there be cameras on site
Yes.
of what, all public areas inside? Or on the outside, where would there be cameras?
Typically, for our properties, it's all the common spaces, so the corridor hallways, obviously not within somebody's unit, but the corridors themselves, the community room, the office, the management office, not the parole offices, but the management office, the parking lot, basically everything that was outside and shared common space.
And it would be listed as a drug-free zone.
Yeah,
And smoking big free.
yes, ma'am.
Aren't they? Are they gonna be, smoke-free with like a designated area? Do you guys have HUD funding?
Smoke-free, right?
Woodland Terrace has a smoking area.
Most of our properties are also.
Most of our portfolio is smoke-free, but some projects do require a smoking designated area,
Right.
like a 10 by 10.
Away from
Yeah.
the main areas?
It
Yeah,
has
so,
to
but indoors it's smoke-free, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Great,
No, you'll
awesome.
be evicted if you're smoking in your unit.
Gina's passion.
Wait for us.
Yes, absolutely.
I've been around the engineering business for 50 years, and I look at that piece of property, and it's going to be extremely expensive to develop. Why didn't you, people that did that housing there rented homes from me during the construction, and they said they really didn't want to move into phase 2, which I assume is that area in red now, because it was going to be way too expensive to construct. Wouldn't there be a different area that might be flatter? And I worry about water coming down there and washing it away. So have any studies been done, how expensive it's going to be to develop that particular parcel? Thank you.
We have not gone that far in this process, but as a developer, we take all of that into account before purchasing a site.
So the site has not been purchased, it's
No,
only being studied?
there are several sites on this
Oh.
slideshow
Oh,
that
okay.
are just possible locations that meet the proximity to amenity requirements that
Yeah.
our financing requires.
Are we gonna be able to see the other potential sites?
Well, there's
We did
several
earlier.
on
Oh, you
here.
did, I'm sorry, okay.
These are the other ones.
Yeah.
Is there in Clear Lake,
Oh, in Cleveland, okay.
and then one in Nice.
Yeah.
But I wanted to
Flatter.
make sure that we're understanding that this doesn't mean that any of these will be the site. There, as you mentioned, there's a lot that goes into the pre-development of ensuring that this location is financially viable.
Yeah.
So we get architects, engineers, geologists involved, and we come up with cost engineering, and that's how we move forward.
You already have a site on Collier Avenue. Are you seriously considering concentrating this kind of activity in a small town?
We were considering it, yes.
So how
But
far
we're
is
ha-
this from the
that's why
current
we're
Collier?
having this
How
meeting.
far is this from the current Collier site, this location?
It's next door.
That's right next door.
That brown area is the site being built right now.
So that went in without any community consultation as a ministerial project. The town has yet to determine what the cause, or pardon me, what the effects of that use will be on them. So is that gonna be considered before you guys pursue this?
Well, I don't agree with that comment.
What's that?
That project did have a public process.
No, that's not true, not true.
We held No Place Like Home meetings 3 years prior when the funding
There
was
was,
announced
there was
from
one
the
meeting
county.
held in Nice after it had been decided. It was approved as a ministerial project by the CDD director. That's a fact.
That's a zoning matter, though.
That's a
and
fact.
we
You
had-
can disagree with it, but it's a fact.
Okay.
So does this development, wherever it does go in, does it include upgrades to, you know, the sidewalks, streets, infrastructure, sewer system, all that kind of thing?
That's dependent on the location,
Because the
and
Smith
the
Street
jurisdiction
one
would require us
the
to
mi-
those.
That area is not presently adequate to take care of something like that, is what I heard. That area does need upgrades, at least in the Martin Street area.
Which area are you referring to? I'm sorry.
The Smith Street
Smith
one?
Street in Lakeport.
Yeah.
The street that goes this direction is Martin, just.
Oh, right, so that's whatever the community development department, building department they hold us as a developer to certain off-site improvements, and
So
we
that
need
would
to
be done
comply
from
and pay
their
for
end?
those. What's that?
What they want you to do as far as upgrades for the.
They usually impose those items on us, yes.
Bruno, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when probation brought this concept to the Board of Supervisors, and there was the potential of it going into District 3, District 3 Supervisor E.J. Crandall made a request to make sure to have public input because of the prior situation that occurred for Collier, because there was some public outcry about the process. So that's been made as a request directly to the probation department, and I'm sure he'll keep asking the same request.
Yeah.
Going back to the Nice site, you said you guys have a facility that's being developed there. Is it the same type of facility? Are there similar resources that can be shared, or are they gonna be completely separate? Is it housing the same type of individuals? Is it expanding that?
So the Collier Avenue project is a No Place Like Home project in partnership with behavioral health for homeless, at-risk and homelessness. So similar tenancy.
Not necessarily shared resources, or potentially having that all housed together, shared resources, or will everything be completely separate?
I think you could argue there is some synergy there, as you just,
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
And that tends to be how we work with behavioral health. We share office space in Lower Lake on purpose, so we can make sure we get services to both groups that we serve as seamless as possible. So I have no doubt if it was there, that would happen.
We can do that.
Other question?
I just have a comment as it pertains to the Nice location and just locations in general. I think it's probably fair to say that the transit service in Nice is probably not as regular as Lakeport and Clear Lake. And I do know that there's going to be a complete streets project going through on Highway 20, but that is also a very deadly corridor for people walking. And I know that the people living in this facility are statistically more likely to not have a car, so just.
And I mean, I'll be honest, Nice is is the lowest on my choice because it's the farthest away from our services. If it's in Lakeport or if it's in Clear Lake, my staff can get there very quickly. If it's in Nice, it's gonna take us 15, 20 minutes to get there. On a good day.
And I also think of jobs potentially
Yeah.
for people getting out to find jobs.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate the community conversation on the topic tonight. So what are the next steps in regards to how it's formally decided which site's going to be chosen?
We'll be looking for more community input. We're discussing the format of other community meetings, whether they're going to be virtual or in person, and just getting some feedback of what everybody wants and doesn't want, and then we'll move forward from there. They'll decide which sites to pursue.
So RCHDC, or excuse me, they are the final determiner of which site's going to be chosen?
Well, we're partners.
We're partners.
So
Yeah.
between the two, between probation and our organization.
Do you guys have a deadline when you have to identify?
Not currently. Oh, wait. do
Or at least your land, or at
we? There's
least identify?
funding applications that come up through various times of the year that we're trying to target some.
Sure.
In the early 2025. Whether that's realistic is to be determined.
That's fair.
I guess another question, to me this seems like it would be pretty much a ministerial or by right housing development to where the local jurisdiction wouldn't have very much discretionary review on it. Is that also how you guys see this?
And yes, unless the site that we find needs to be rezoned, then it would be a ministerial approval process, right?
And then as far as handling, because obviously I'm pretty sure wherever you put it, there's going to be some neighbors that are going to be nearby that aren't going to want it there. Clear Lake people are going to tell you to put it in Lakeport, Lakeport people are going to tell you to put it in Clear Lake.
Yep.
And so you'll play that kind of cat game. But in regards to security, does the local jurisdiction have discretion as far as putting in conditions of approval for you know, security, I know you said that you have the probation officers that are readily available, but I'm assuming they generally probably just work daytime hours. If this is a 24-hour operation and something pops off at 1 a.m. in the morning, what's the expectation there for security? Is there gonna be a security guard on site, or, because I think that's probably gonna be most of the neighborhood concerns, is, you know, not feeling safe in their neighborhood or secure in their neighborhood, with folks like these moving in close to their homes. So just from a local government perspective, that's my concern.
Right, so the question is whether the county can impose a requirement for us to have security?
Well, I mean, if you put it in the county, I guess that would be, I guess my question is could we impose some sort of a security, like guard requirement, or somebody who's on site 24 hours?
In your
I'm not-
conditions.
Outside of like the property manager, who probably isn't a security guard
Yeah,
by
I'd have to
trade.
confer with legal on that. I don't think they could legally do that, based on state legislation. But it's that's why we're trying to work so cohesive to ensure the safety of this environment. I don't think we can impose the requirement of a 24-hour guard on this project, because it's not an institution, that's not the design that has been described this evening. It's not like an asylum, or, you know, it's independent living with heavy services, right? And often projects of this nature can't afford a 24-hour security. It's very expensive. We do have a project that has that, and the county pays for that security guard. We have a home key project in Ukiah, and the county is owner, and they pay for security, and yeah, but.
So because you can't afford that capacity, wouldn't it be wiser to put it near the sheriff's or police stations?
I mean, most people want to think probation.
Thank you for that feedback, yes.
It's really close to probation, right?
Yeah, in the current sheriff department, though, it's anticipated they'll be moving.
I could just provide feedback about 24-hour services. Hi, everybody. If you don't know, I'm the director of Lake County Behavioral Health, and so as Chief Monfrance mentioned, behavioral health has significant partnership with probation. We do a lot of work together. What we know is that when people have the supports they need to be successful, they usually are. We also established a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-a-year mobile crisis response program that went live on January 1st. So 800-900-2075 is the number for that. Tell it to everybody you know. And individuals in this development, as well as anywhere else in the county, would have access to that. Of course, in partnership and looking at the needs of that population, whether or not it made sense to even have 24-hour behavioral health staff on site is not outside the realm of possibility, because we know that individuals on probation or community supervision are much more likely to have behavioral health needs. It may make sense to come at it from a treatment and prevention approach.
I just wanted to echo the sentiments that I would like dormitory style housing, because some of the things that are being addressed about security, if you have one way in or 2 ways in and out, and you have cameras, you're gonna have a lot more control and your security is gonna be there. So I think those are good things that we have in place here, and the experience has shown that.
So the cameras would be monitored the whole time, right?
No one is sitting watching the computer screen 24 hours, no. But if an incident were to occur, we're able to go back and look at that. The on-site manager is relatively busy throughout the day with various tasks, so unfortunately not monitoring live.
Just a suggestion, with regard to the program itself, not so much the location, but, because we have enough about this, we have years and thought I've had, that I think would make a program like this successful. It's just a suggestion, and I know it might cost, you might have to do, but if these people that were in these units were actually part of the maintenance of the complex itself, perhaps they'd have a little pride in it and not totally trash it, and it might give them some kind of skill as well. So it's just something to kind of think about incorporating into the program.
I love that. It's beautiful.
What I hear is saying is some community service requirement also for the community where it's located. whether it's incorporated or not incorporated? Or is that against the rules that you
Well,
can't
community,
make people?
community
work
service
for
is
nothing?
ordered by the court and more and more infrequently. So we're somewhat prohibited from doing community service in a lot of, from ordering it in a lot of avenues. I could see where we could make a condition of living there, but we can't do it as a condition of probation.
No, but I think what she's saying is
Yeah.
a condition of living there.
Yeah.
Let's become part of the community and create some pride in the community, and maybe they'll, as a result of that, meet someone on the program, like in Clear Lake has friends cleaning up Clear Lake. And
Yes.
it's become a wonderful program of volunteer stuff. So they meet someone who says, I've got a studio apartment in the backyard, I'd love to have you come out of this facility and stay in my backyard. So it's, I think interaction with the community wherever this is located is important and should be a requirement of part of the living there.
I think that the concept of one nation, one door, it means that all the services are under the roof. And you're gonna have mental health there and counseling, because that's gonna be very important to make that transition.
Yes. And sons, both sides. Any other questions?
Yeah, as far as, because I'm thinking more in terms of the Lakeport, going into Lakeport, after dealing with a number of people that were either on probation or soon to be on probation or something like that. I'm not in a big hurry to deal with a bunch of these people and all of their friends that would be congregating in the area. So would there be like any type of behavior as far as something that would limit that? Because my situation is we were seeing people come from Nice, Lucerne, Kelseyville to congregate with some of these people. So they were drawing an element that wasn't very good into our neighborhood. Is there something that would prevent these people from doing the same thing?
We can't limit somebody on probation from having a life. We need them to have a life and get get attached to their resources and come up with a pro-social environment. There are limitations sometimes with who they can be with and who they can't be with. Did you have something to add to
I
that?
was gonna say, I mean, it sounds like from what you described, the population you're looking to put in there is kind of the cream of the crop.
Yes.
It's the people that are really dedicated to making that change,
Yes.
not going down the wrong path.
That involves the assessment.
Yes, that's why we do the assessments.
Yeah,
And we don't
getting
just
the
assess
counseling.
once and walk away. We're reassessing as, the longest we go without another assessment is 6 months. But if there's a changing event, then the assessment occurs sooner.
I'm assuming there's rules, just like anywhere that you would live in a common living, apartment complex, or that there will be rules that anybody has to follow to live there. And I know that also when they do their applications, or, there's probably things that are listed on there that say that these things cannot happen, or this type of activity for anybody, and not just in a situation like that. So I'm guessing, I know I've seen some of the applications before, so.
My name is Ashley Hathaway. I'm a regional manager, but was an on-site manager for 4.5 years at one of our special needs properties, and lived at that beautiful yellow building that you've seen up here. It is a full special needs property. You do have individuals who are coming from incarceration, or all of those individuals being engaged in services. And there are rules and regulations in place with the lease, with the set of house rules. We have guest registration requirements. There are things that we take the time to look at from a property management perspective of upkeeping those individuals and upholding those rules. And if they're breaking those rules, there's lease violations, there's ways to hold them accountable. So it's not that somebody could just have unlimited guests coming in and out and not be held accountable for that situation. That's where we would take instances of reviewing cameras, seeing where people were going, or if they're staying there overnight or unregistered in any way, and we can follow up on those things.
Just to make sure I understood, so there's gonna be 40 beds, 40 units, 20 are gonna be dedicated to the probation, justice involved folks. Who are the other 50% of the population?
Currently untargeted, they're just general low income. We're looking into the possibility of partnering with behavioral health to fill those remaining units. However, that would be a whole other process to go through. But so currently, that doesn't mean that they cannot be filled by justice involved folks. It just means that they're not specifically carved out for them.
And can these low income units go towards the jurisdiction's RENA numbers? Do you guys have an idea?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Why only 20 beds in Lake County?
That's how much we could afford with the 5 million. Like, that's what it came down to.
Because we need way more.
I get that, and my goal is to, if this works, you know, like I suspect it will, is we're gonna figure out a way to keep going. But we're starting small, so we don't set ourselves up to fail, and getting a good process in place, and then eventually grow. Or maybe we won't need to, because we'll figure out how to solve the
I
problem.
just want to speak to all the community that's concerned about people reentering our community from probation or from parole. We have to give people an opportunity to change. And I say that because I'm one of those folks. I've been in Lake County for 29 years. I've owned my house for 17. So people can change. Let's give them some room to change.
What's the timeline? When are we gonna? I want
It was small.
2 years.
It was small.
That's it. Moving them on.
January acquires that. Now I can see it because I was looking on that one. I didn't realize it was 2024.
About 4 years is
Yeah,
what it
January
takes to
25, all the way
accrue
to-
enough money to then compete for tax credits, to then break ground and building permits.
To acquire that.
So we couldn't chase more money for more beds?
Well, that's what we're here for. We're chasing the more, we are proposing the 40 units, so if Wendy has more folks, they are eligible to go into the remaining 20 units that are with the complex.
This just guarantees us the 20.
The 20 beds.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a
I know
minimum.
we need more because I've been a counselor here
Yes.
for over a decade. So we need more.
Yeah. And then it has to do with how competitive we can be to get enough money to fund the entire project. So there's a whole balancing act of what can we afford versus not getting the project
Yeah, I don't like
financed
that
at all.
part because the need is there and it's about the people.
Right.
It's about the need.
Yeah.
Is there, since this is gonna, I'm looking at this timeline here, 2028, that the construction will be finished, am I understanding that right? Is there another, can we use the Nice location so that we're not waiting 3 years to?
So, I know where you're going.
Yeah.
So what we have done, we're going to take it to the Board of Supervisors, heads up Bruno. I think in a couple weeks. We are contracting with a provider who is opening homes in the South Shore. She's developed several, or she's in the process of developing several, and she will be giving us bed space in those. And so we're starting, we hope to have that contract in
And the
place by the end of
supervision will still
November.
be there,
The
just like
supervision
we-
will be there, and they have, she has some really extreme house rules.
Yeah.
And we like that. So, yeah, we're
That's
partnering with
great.
that, and that should come forward within the next month. Meredith just got off the phone with her when we were walking in the door here. Yeah.
What are the difference in response times from the different locations?
Response for our officers?
No, medical, police, that kind of thing.
I don't have that information.
Oh, really?
Behavioral health response time must be no less than 55 minutes. However, it depends on which side of the lake we're on when you call. We typically have 2 teams on staff at any time, but you can appreciate if we were in Spring Valley and you called in Scotts Valley, that could take us some time.
I live in Lucerne, and anecdotally, the response times are upwards of 2 hours. So it's a difficult nut to swallow to put this thing as far away from critical services as you're proposing.
Well, that's why really we're focused on Lakeport or Clear Lake. And I did meet with the city manager of Clear Lake, who actually volunteered some of the sites you saw today as potential sites.
So at what point does the community get to rule out any of these locations?
I don't know that there's a rule out. It's giving us your input, and we're gonna take everybody's feedback into account and come up with the best plan.
You mentioned you met with the city manager of Clear Lake. Have you also done the same with us?
I have not yet, no, I did not.
Will there be other meetings scheduled?
That's the plan, yes.
Is there an address where people could seek information or put their views in between now and whenever the next meeting's gonna be?
There's email addresses.
My card is up there. You're free to email me, call me. We have a Facebook page. You can, we try to put all of our notifications on there, and the counties, we did a press release for this and sent it to, the county sent it to 150 different groups. The county Facebook page, they should be on the county's webpage, things like that. So you should be able to see the information. I think we're even on Instagram, so it should show up there too.
Would this PowerPoint be available, posted anywhere or not?
We can have it put on our website.
Awesome, okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
It's on your website, is there a place that we can go to look at the documentation, what the, what your guidelines are that you have to adhere to?
As far as
For
the tenants or us as?
Is you for the projects and that, like basic guidelines of the project.
Guidelines.
Or maybe
I'm sorry,
like
I
the
don't-
proximity and like maybe the variables
Yeah,
that make the ideal
the area
parcel.
that's gonna be,
You know, the AB 109 requirements, you know, that type of thing.
We have that on our website. Do you understand? I guess not.
We typically don't have projects we're developing on our website, just the ones that you can apply for.
But to be clear, you're inquiring about the guidelines that the
Well, yeah,
funding
the
sources
guidelines that
dictate?
you need to adhere to, the guidelines.
Like our
of-
funders, the
Well,
government, the
yeah,
state, the
and like I say,
federal?
well, it needs to
That's
be
about
an
the
area
guidelines
that's
used
so
to
close to.
consider the-
How
far from the
all the,
road?
you know, the
Probably
different
close one
guidelines.
Yeah,
Pick the property to do the development.
yeah. I would recommend, if you want to, go to tcac.com or .ca.gov, is it the gov? I can write it down on a card for you.
Yeah.
And it's the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. That's the primary funding source that funds these affordable projects. And they have 200 pages of guidelines that, you know, spell out how to develop, own, operate, and manage these types of communities. So that's where I think you find what I'm understanding you're looking for. Okay. Yeah, I'll write that down for you.
Great.
Angie can write that down for you. Yeah. It's really great, beautiful program. It's bipartisan support, you know, billionaires taxation funds, building homes for the less fortunate. I think so. I get excited about it. Welfare for the rich.
Okay, Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming, we really appreciate it. Keep an eye out on our Facebook page for where the next meetings, or how they'll be held and when they'll be held.
And we may do a Zoom to hopefully get more people. This was great though, I really appreciate your time and hearing us out, thank you so much.
Thank you.